A private airport in Texas, a $120 million jet is completely dead. 30 elite engineers have searched for 8 hours, but they found nothing. Inside the terminal, Amelia Stone, a powerful billionaire CEO, is furious. She must sign a $3 billion deal in New York very soon. Suddenly, a quiet single father wearing a faded maintenance uniform steps forward. "I think I can fix it." Everyone laughs. Amelia scoffs. "If you fix this, I will pay you $5 million. The man just smiles. 10 minutes later, the massive engine suddenly roars to life. The entire runway goes completely dead silent. Meet Jack Carter, a 43-year-old single father. If you looked at him, you would only see a quiet man with grease under his fingernails and a worn-out blue collar. He works part-time as a basic utility maintenance worker at the municipal airport. He mops the hangar floors, moves heavy toolboxes, and does the dirty work nobody else wants to do. But Jack does not complain. He takes every extra hour he can get because of a little girl named Lucy. Lucy is 9 years old, and she is Jack's entire universe. She has bright, curious eyes, and she absolutely loves airplanes. While other kids play with dolls, Lucy builds small wooden gliders. She dreams of becoming an aerospace engineer to touch the clouds, and she is incredibly proud of her dad. They live in a tiny, cramped one-bedroom apartment right next to the airport boundary fence. The rent is high, the walls are thin, and the constant noise of jet engines shakes their windows every night. But to Lucy, it is the most magical place on earth. Every single dollar Jack earns is saved. Every dime is tucked away into a small glass jar on the kitchen counter, labeled Lucy's College Fund. Behind Jack's warm smile, however, lies a deep, heavy pain. 3 years ago, Jack's life was completely shattered when his wife, Sarah, was diagnosed with aggressive cancer. Back then, Jack was a different man. He was never home, working as a high-powered aerospace consultant, earning a massive salary, flying from country to country, and designing advanced propulsion systems. He thought he was doing the right thing by providing for his family, but while he was chasing corporate success, time was running out. By the time he realized how sick Sarah was, it was too late. He was in a boardroom in Tokyo when he got the call. He rushed back, but she passed away just 3 days later. The guilt was suffocating. In that dark moment, Jack made a vow. He quit his lucrative job, threw away his expensive suits, sold their luxury home, and chose a simple, quiet life to be there for his daughter every single day. No more business trips, no more late-night meetings, just him and Lucy. Every single evening, after Jack finishes his shift, the two of them walk to the edge of the runway fence. They sit on an old wooden bench, holding hands, watching the massive silver birds rise into the sunset. Lucy loves to lean her head against Jack's arm. "Hey, Daddy," she would whisper. "Yes, sweetie? The people on that plane, they are going home to see their families, right?" "Yes, they are." Lucy would smile a deep, pure smile. "You know, you don't just fix planes, Daddy. You fix reunions. You make sure they get to hug their kids." Jack would squeeze her hand, his eyes misting over. He never told her that he used to design those very engines, and he never told anyone at the airport. To the world, he was just the guy who swept the floors. But to Lucy, he was a hero, and that was the only title Jack ever wanted. But you cannot truly erase a gift. When Jack walked through the hangars, he didn't just see metal and fuel. He could hear the machines. He understood their rhythms, knew when a turbine was breathing properly, and knew when it was choking. On this hot Texas afternoon, he heard a machine crying out for help. Enter Amelia Stone. At 38 years old, she is the definition of power, the CEO of Stone Industries, a massive global conglomerate. She is fierce, wealthy, and absolutely cold. To Amelia, the world is simple. Everything and everyone has a price. If something is broken, you throw money at it until it is fixed. Today, she is in a furious rush. A $3 billion acquisition contract is waiting on her desk in New York, with the signing scheduled for 5 p.m. sharp. If she is late, the competitor will swoop in, and years of work will vanish. She is standing on the tarmac, her arms crossed, her eyes burning with anger as she screams at the lead engineer. "What do you mean you don't know? The lead engineer, a man with 30 years of experience, wipes sweat from his forehead. I'm sorry, Miss Stone. The onboard computer is showing a critical engine system failure. We've replaced the sensors, reset the software, and checked the fuel lines. Everything looks perfect, but the turbine simply will not ignite. Amelia paces back and forth, her high heels clicking sharply against the concrete. I pay you people millions of dollars. I don't want excuses. I want this plane in the air. Just then, Jack is pushing a heavy cart of trash nearby and suddenly stops. He looks at the massive, silent engine of the Gulfstream G650. He listens, not to the silence, but to the faint, metallic clicks and hisses coming from the cooling system. To anyone else, it is just random noise, but to Jack, it is a message. He closes his eyes, visualizing the internal schematics, the air intake, the combustion chamber, and the bypass valves. He shakes his head. It's not the sensors, he mutters to himself. He walks over to the edge of the security line and says in a calm, quiet voice, "Excuse me, I think I know why it won't start." The lead engineer stops and looks at Jack's dirty uniform, the grease on his hands, and the name tag that simply says, Jack Maintenance. The engineer scoffs. Hey, buddy. We are trying to diagnose a highly advanced dual-axis turbofan engine. This isn't a broken lawnmower or a rusty pickup truck. Go back to sweeping the lobby. The other engineers chuckle, shaking their heads in agreement. But Amelia Stone turns around, her eyes locking onto Jack. She is desperate, angry, and walks over to him with an intimidating presence. You think you can fix this? She asks, her voice dripping with sarcasm. My team consists of the top aerospace graduates from Stanford and Caltech. They've been working on this for 8 hours. And you, a janitor, think you know better? Jack does not flinch. He looks her directly in the eyes. I don't think I know better, Jack replies softly. I just think the engine is trying to tell us what is wrong, and your computers aren't listening. A loud laugh goes through the crowd of engineers. He thinks he's an engine whisperer, one of them sneers. Amelia looks at her watch. Time is running out. She has exactly 2.5 hours. She is frustrated and wants to humiliate this arrogant maintenance worker. So she smiles a cold, wicked smile. Tell you what, Amelia says, loud enough for everyone to hear. I like a good joke. If you can actually fix this plane in the next 10 minutes, I will personally write you a check for $5 million. She laughs, expecting him to walk away. But if you fail, you are fired. Right here, right now. The crowd gasps, and the lead engineer smiles. Go ahead, Sweepy. Show us your magic. Jack stands there, silent. He doesn't care about the $5 million or her arrogance, but he does care about his job and the machine. Suddenly, a tiny hand slips into his. Jack looks down to see Lucy, who had been waiting for him by the employee entrance, watching the whole scene. Her little face is pale, but her eyes are shining with absolute trust. Daddy, she whispers, looking up at him. You can do it, right? Jack kneels down, completely ignoring the crowd and the billionaire CEO. He gently tucks a strand of hair behind Lucy's ear. You think so, sweetie? Jack asks. Lucy nods vigorously. You always tell me, if you listen closely enough, everything has a story to tell. Go listen to the plane, Daddy. Jack looks at his daughter, and her belief in him acts as a powerful shield, washing away all the doubts and memories of his past mistakes. He stands up, looks at Amelia Stone and says, All right, give me 10 minutes. Jack walks toward the giant engine while the engineers step back, arms crossed with smirks plastered on their faces. Jack doesn't grab a diagnostic laptop or ask for the system logs. Instead, he pulls a small, simple metal stethoscope from his back pocket, the kind mechanics used decades ago. He climbs up a small metal ladder and presses the metal piece against the outer cowl of the engine, closing his eyes. For a moment, there is absolute silence in the hangar. He listens to the faint hum of the auxiliary power unit and the flow of air. To the crowd below, he looks ridiculous, like a doctor trying to check the heartbeat of a giant metal beast. Is he going to give it a shot of penicillin? One engineer whispers, prompting chuckles from the others. But Jack is entirely focused. He hears it deep within the compressor stage. There is a tiny, almost imperceptible metallic whistling of restricted air. He opens his eyes. "Bring me a flashlight and a 10-millimeter wrench," Jack commands. His voice has suddenly changed, losing the quiet, timid tone of a janitor to become the authoritative, sharp voice of a master commander. The young technician on the ground, startled by the tone, quickly hands him the tools. Jack reaches deep into the lower access panel. "Open the auxiliary fuel bypass valve," Jack says. The lead engineer steps forward, scowling. "What? No. That valve is computer-controlled and completely sealed. There's no reason to touch it. The digital diagnostics show it is fully operational." Jack looks down from the ladder, his gaze icy. The computer is reading the sensor at the end of the line, not the physical valve itself. "Open it." Hesitantly, the engineer signals the cockpit. A soft hum vibrates through the metal as Jack shines his flashlight deep into the dark housing. And there it is, a tiny, microscopic metal shaving, no larger than a grain of sand, wedged inside the primary fuel bypass actuator. Because of this tiny blockage, the valve is physically stuck open, constantly flooding the combustion chamber with too much air and preventing ignition. Yet, because the electrical connection is intact, the diagnostic computer assumed everything was perfectly fine. If they had somehow forced the engine to start, the fuel bypass line would have ruptured. At 35,000 feet mid-flight, the engine would have suffered a catastrophic thermal blowout, and the plane would have plunged from the sky. The engineers crowd around, looking through Jack's inspection mirror. When they see the tiny metal grain, their faces go completely pale. The lead engineer's jaw drops. How did you? No computer in the world could have detected that." Jack doesn't answer. He carefully uses his thin pliers to extract the tiny metal shard, adjusts the actuator until he hears a clean, satisfying click, and seals the panel. He climbs down the ladder and wipes his hands on an old rag. "Try starting it now," Jack says calmly. The captain, sitting in the cockpit, looks out the window at Amelia. Amelia, frozen in disbelief, slowly nods. The captain presses the ignition switch, and a low, deep whine begins to echo through the hangar. The turbine blades start to spin faster and faster. And then, roar. The massive engine ignites with a thunderous, powerful blast of pure energy. The ground shakes, the air vibrates, and the engine runs smoother than it ever had before. The entire hangar is stunned. The engineers stare at Jack, their eyes wide with absolute shock, while Amelia Stone stands completely motionless. The wind from the engine blows her hair across her face, but she doesn't care. She is staring at the quiet maintenance man. Suddenly, a senior engineer who had been quiet the entire time walks slowly toward Jack, staring intensely at his face. "No, it can't be," the senior engineer whispers, his voice trembling. "Jack? Jack Carter." Jack looks at him and gives a small, tired nod. "Hello, Frank." The senior engineer turns to the crowd, his voice filled with awe. "Do you have any idea who this is?" "This is Jack Carter. He was the chief design architect for aerospace engines. He wrote the textbooks you studied in college. He is the engine whisperer." A collective gasp rises from the engineers. Amelia's heart drops. "The engine whisperer," she murmurs. She walks over to Jack, her pride completely shattered. "If you are a genius, if you are a legend," Amelia asks, her voice shaking, "why? Why are you sweeping floors in a dusty Texas airport for minimum wage?" Jack looks down at his daughter, who is smiling proudly while holding his hand. "Because," Jack says softly, "my daughter needed a father, not a billionaire." The hangar goes silent, save for the steady roar of the engine. Jack looks at Amelia. 10 years ago, I was like you. I chased the deals, chased the millions, and thought my family would always be there waiting for me. But when my wife got sick, I was too busy designing the engines of the future to notice that my present was slipping away." His voice cracks, but he keeps his composure. "I was in Tokyo when she took her last breath. I never got to say goodbye. And in that moment, I realized a painful truth. He looks directly into Amelia's eyes. No amount of money, and no amount of success, is worth missing the people you love. I don't need a corporate empire. I just need to be here to walk my daughter to school, to watch her grow, and to be her dad. Amelia stands there, the words hitting her like a physical blow. Amelia Stone is a woman who has everything. A private jet, high-rise apartments in 3 different continents, millions in the bank, and billions in assets. But as she stands on the tarmac, listening to Jack's words, she feels completely, utterly empty. She looks at her phone to find 42 unread work emails and 17 missed calls from board members, but not a single message from a friend. No, how are you? No, stay safe. She has no husband, no children, and she hasn't spoken to her parents in over 2 years because she was too busy with quarterly earnings reports. She looks at Jack, who is standing in his dirty overalls, hugging his little girl, and for the first time in her life, Amelia feels a pang of intense jealousy. It is not a jealousy of his skills, but of his wealth, because Jack is truly wealthy. Don't you regret it? Amelia asks, her voice barely a whisper. Don't you miss the power, the creation, and the thrill of building something that changes the world? Jack smiles a gentle, wise smile. I used to think I was building machines to connect the world, Jack says. But I was actually disconnecting myself from my own life. A machine can always be rebuilt, Ms. Stone. But a childhood, a marriage, or a family, once they are gone forever. The words puncture Amelia's armored exterior. A tear, warm and heavy, escapes her eye, tracing a path down her flawless makeup. She quickly wipes it away, but the emotional floodgates have already opened. She remembers her mother's 65th birthday, which she skipped for a merger meeting. She remembers when her father went through heart surgery, and she only sent a fruit basket and an assistant because she was in negotiations in London. She had convinced herself that she was sacrificing for her legacy, but standing here in front of a grease-stained man who gave up everything for his child, she realizes her legacy is just a cold, empty office. She has won every business war, but she has lost her life. Suddenly, Lucy steps forward. She looks at the powerful, weeping CEO, and her little heart is filled with pure empathy. Lucy reaches into her small backpack, pulls out a folded piece of paper, walks over to Amelia, and holds it out. Here, Lucy says softly. This is for you. Amelia, startled, slowly takes the paper and unfolds it. It is a colorful crayon drawing showing a big, happy airplane flying through puffy blue clouds. Underneath the plane, there is a drawing of a father and a daughter holding hands and smiling. At the top of the page, in messy, childish handwriting, it says, "Home is where we land." Amelia stares at the drawing. The simple, pure message crushes her remaining defenses. She covers her mouth and begins to sob. Not a polite, quiet cry, but a deep, releasing sob of years of accumulated loneliness and regret. The powerful, untouchable Amelia Stone is crying on a dusty airport tarmac, holding a child's drawing. Lucy reaches out and gently pats Amelia's knee. It's okay, the little girl whispers. My daddy fixed your plane. Now you can go home too. Amelia looks at Lucy, then at Jack. Thank you, she whispers, her voice choked with emotion. Thank you. 1 month later, at the small apartment near the runway, a sleek, black limousine pulls up to the curb. The door opens and Amelia Stone steps out, but she looks different. She is not wearing her stiff, corporate armor. Instead, she wears a simple casual dress. Her hair is soft, and for the first time, she has a genuine, warm smile on her face. She knocks on Jack's door. Jack opens it, surprised. Ms. Stone, please, call me Amelia, she says. She steps inside the tiny, neat apartment and places a sleek, black envelope on the kitchen table. I am a woman of my word, Jack, Amelia says. Inside this envelope is a cashier's check for $5 million. You earned it. You fixed my plane. And you saved my life in ways you will never fully understand. Jack looks at the envelope, then pushes it back toward her. Thank you, Amelia, Jack says softly. But I cannot accept this. Amelia is stunned. Why? It could change Lucy's life. She could go to any university in the world. Lucy's future is already secure, Jack says, pointing to his heart. She has her father and we have enough. But if you truly want to spend that money, I have a better idea. That afternoon, the seeds of a beautiful legacy were planted. Instead of taking the money, Jack and Amelia co-founded a charitable foundation called the Wings Home Foundation, with the $5 million used as seed money. The mission is to provide financial aid, educational scholarships, and mental health support to aviation maintenance workers, single parents, and young children who dream of engineering but have no resources. Jack agreed to serve as the chief technical advisor for the foundation, working just a few hours a week remotely from home, but he refused a high salary. He kept his small apartment and his simple life because he knew that his true wealth could never be stored in a bank. And Amelia changed, too. She restructured her company, delegating power to her executives, stopped working 80-hour weeks, started visiting her parents, making friends and learning how to slow down, breathe, and land. In the final scene, the sun is setting over the Texas horizon, painting the sky in deep shades of gold and purple. Jack and Lucy are sitting on their favorite wooden bench right next to the airport fence as a massive passenger jet rises into the sky, its engines roaring with a clean, powerful song. Lucy watches it fly, her eyes reflecting the golden light, and leans her head against Jack's shoulder. Hey, Daddy? Yes, sweetie? If you had taken the $5 million, we could have bought a giant mansion. We could have been so rich. Jack smiles, wrapping his arm around her to pull her close. We are already rich, Lucy, Jack whispers, kissing the top of her head. I have the most precious treasure in the world. What is it? She asks, looking up. I have you, and I have time. Lucy hugs him tight. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, sweetie. And as the plane disappears into the clouds, the engine's roar fades into the quiet, peaceful evening. Have you ever been so busy chasing a career that you forgot the people who are waiting for you to come home? Have you ever underestimated someone just because of their dirty clothes or their quiet job? If you could choose today between earning another $1 million or having one more uninterrupted evening with your family, what would you choose? Some people carry grease on their hands, but possess the most brilliant minds and noble hearts. Some people have billions in their bank accounts, but are completely bankrupt in their souls. And sometimes, an engine roar doesn't just fix a jet. It wakes up a sleeping heart and reminds us of what truly matters.